What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring everything fresh in entertainment. My name is Drew Brumfield, and join with me just this time is Randy. Randy, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic.
Yeah, and today we are talking about a game me and Randy play arguably way too often, and that is the free MMO called Smite. Randy, for people who maybe not have heard of this, because MMOs aren't, as popular with the general population. What is Smite?
Smite is a PvP MMO that it's pretty much it's round based. So you have your traditional game modes like Conquest, and but they also have some fun different ones if you're looking for just kind of mindless unga bunga run at the enemy. You got like Arena. You don't have objectives other than just kill the enemy and stuff like that. And what kind of separates it from some of the other MMOs, instead of just being like, for example, League, where you just have champions and whatnot, where they're original characters and whatnot, is that this has gods in it. It's Smite Battlegrounds of the Gods. So you have like Ra, Zeus, Hades, Tiamat,
different mythologies.
Like different mythologies, and it's really fun to have like characters like that and just be like, I'm gonna go around and beat some people up and get some kills as Zeus and stuff like that.
Yep.
So it's kind of a fun fantasy aspect like that.
Yep. I got drawn into this game because I like learning about mythologies, and it's a fun way to be like, oh, I didn't know about the Mayan gods, or like, oh, that's Hercules is actually a Roman god, not Greek. It'd be Heracles and stuff like that. Another thing that I feel like is important is Smite is different from your traditional MMOs. Like when you think of League or maybe Dota or some other things like that, it's like a top-down thing. Smite's different where it is third person. It's the camera is very close to your character, and you're not just clicking on people. You actually have to aim and shoot, and there's a bit more like strategy to it, unless you're playing as Neith, and then the game plays for you. But other than that,
dude, she presses 4 so good.
She presses 4 like a bit,
like the best of them,
bro. Really high skill character. But Smite's a really fun game because it actually, at least for me, it feels more engaging than that, like a top-down perspective like League or like a different MMO. And again, the characters coming from mythology are really interesting. You get to learn about people and see some of your favorites if you do study that type of thing. Because you got your big classics like Thor and Loki and, as
Athena,
you said,
Zeus,
Athena, and then
Ra, Anubis.
Yeah, but you also have your lesser known ones like Agni or Skadi, and now more modern gods that have been added have been things like Cthulhu or Merlin, really expanding what they consider quote unquote mythology. Yeah. So
I would say Merlin is kind of is
the Arthurian legends, but Cthulhu is definitely like that guy. That character is made in the 1920s or 30s. But so it's a very interesting game, and it's been going on for
10 years now.
Yep, 10 years. They recently had their big 10-year anniversary. Me myself, I have not been playing for 10 whole years. But Randy, how did you first get into Smite?
I first got into Smite actually from one of our friends. I believe Jacob was the first one out of our group to play it. And I was kind of initially just kind of like, nah, I'll pass. He's like, dude, it's really fun. And like, it's free to play. So just try it out. And so I downloaded it and I played with him and a couple other friends. I know Robert, who's also been on the podcast, he got into it for a while. And then eventually I got you into it. And then our friend Seth. And we all kind of go in waves. I think, Drew, you and I have been the only ones like consistent on it. Other people kind of come and go in waves. But that's how I got hooked, is just said, hey, you want to play? And I was like, I'll give it a shot. And then getting to play as these different gods and stuff like that. I believe the first one I played as was Ra. And he has this ability where pretty much his ultimate is just straight fire laser that does a whole bunch of damage, and it just felt really satisfying to be like to line it up and hit someone, and get that timing down and stuff like that. So I kind of got hooked on that, and then wanted to try out all these different gods or whatnot. I don't remember how many people they had at the time. If I remember correctly, they just introduced Ratatoskr. I think that's season 2 or 3, so it was still pretty early.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been hooked on just trying out a whole bunch of different gods, and now there's over 100, which is kind of crazy.
So for me, I start, as Randy mentioned, I kind of started because I saw like everyone else was playing it. I'm like, okay, I'll try this game out. Let's see what it's free to play. It didn't take up that much storage at the time. But I was like, I tried. I think I remember when I started, it was either it was Xing Chen and Amaterasu was the big new thing was the fact that like we're introducing Japanese gods. Was like that was the first new god to me. So, and I don't remember what year that was or how long ago that was, like, because Amaterasu is not a new god now.
Dang. Okay, so yeah, it was season 2. Ratatoskr came out in June of 2015. So It was somewhere in 2015 is when I started. So it's been almost 8 years. You continue. I'll figure out when Amaterasu came out.
Do some research for me. But yeah, that's kind of... I just saw that, like, okay, all my friends are playing it, and I wanted to just, like... I just wanted to try it out just to, like, be part of whatever current trend we were doing and just, like, have a game to play. And as Randy said, I got really hooked on it. It was really satisfying because normally I didn't think I'd be into, like, building your character, buying different items, and upgrading abilities, like, mid-match to min-max, like, all your stats and stuff. But, like, after playing it for a while, it's a very addicting and, like, gameplay loop of going in. And even if you're playing the exact same god or character, you can build them completely different due to like the items that are changing. And you can make them very tanky, very attack speed based, very ability based. And there's just a lot of like character diversity. So even if you're only playing the one god, you can have a very different play style depending on like what the items you buy are. And there's just something about that just like made me keep coming back to the game. Like, okay, I want to try it with this item, or I want to play these characters, but with the same build as last time. Or, a synergy between me playing this god and someone else playing a different class. So there's a lot of character diversity, and it's just a lot of fun, fun gameplay loop within that. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Amaterasu, you must have joined roughly 6 months later, or about that. It came out January 2016. Okay. So 6 to 5 months later is when you would have joined.
Yeah. So we've been, and honestly, like Ray said, me and you, other people have, come on and come off, which is fine. But me and you have definitely been playing this game for a...
Too long, some would say.
Yeah. We spent too much time playing this.
I don't want to admit how many hours I have. I just went to Steam and looked at how many, and this is just Steam. I started playing on Xbox.
Yeah.
And I didn't build a gaming computer until 2019, I believe. So give me a second to do some math and convert these hours to days.
I'm gonna not do that because I could look up on Xbox how long I did. I'm just gonna not, because I've never switched to PC. Eventually I will whenever I get a good gaming PC, but who knows when that's gonna happen. But yeah, no, it's a very
I'll hold on to it. If you remember to ask me at the end of the podcast, I'll say how many days I've played this game.
Yeah, stay tuned to watch how much of Randy's life he's wasted on this game.
Exactly. How much of a freaking loser I am.
Yeah. But yeah, in my opinion, I'll probably clickbait this podcast with what's the best, or like, is this the best free to play game? And I would honestly say before like we get into like our favorite gods and all that stuff, I do want to go on a little tangent about that. I do believe that this is the best free to play game, and that it has the best formula for said game. And again, it's been around for 10 years, so it definitely has its had ups and downs with different seasons. But I've never been super pissed off about like, oh, if a new skin for a god comes out and it's super expensive, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's never been like, okay, if a new god comes out, you can buy them, especially playing as long as we have. You can always get them and play whoever you want just by playing the game and getting this one form of currency, favor. You don't have to have gems. And you can still always enjoy the game. You never feel like another player is better than you because they got a god before you. And it has just a really good like reward system for continuing playing. I have only like spent money on the game like a few times for very specific things. But even before I decided to like cave in and spend money, because I spent just enough hours in it, I could get different skins for gods just from working and playing the game, and I felt like I earned something. It's not a thing where it's like you will always be default character man if you don't spend money. The game has a very rewarding system, just play the game and you will be rewarded. And if you spend money, it'll just go faster. So, and it's a system that like a lot of modern games, aka Overwatch, really should copy. Like if you were going to be a free to play game, then you should have systems like Smite has, where players are still rewarded for going down the free path. A lot of people do this battle pass system, and Smite has one too, but it's not the only thing. There are still chests, there are still other ways, there are events, there are a bunch of stuff that keep rewarding the players for keep coming back, and that's why it's lasted for 10 years. So I just want to go off on that little tangent of just like there's a lot of free to play games that try to do like still cash grab systems, but Smite is one of the much better ones than that. So that tangent out of the way, let's get into really what I think is like the main selling point for these games, and that's playing as different gods and goddesses from these mythologies. So we'll start with I always try to be a bit more well-rounded. I try to go and play each of the classes. Warrior probably is my favorite, but if you would look at my stats, he's like, okay, he has a nice balance and everything. Randy is not like that. Randy definitely has a favorite class, and so I'll go ahead and start with that favorite class because you probably have multiple gods you want to talk about. So these are the mages. These are the ones where if you play the conquest mode, these are in the middle lane. They are your big magical damage dealers because there's physical damage and magical damage. And these guys are typically big magic based dealers. They have, big lane clearing attacks and fancy specials.
Generally ability based.
Yeah. Most of the time, but they can be very diversified with this class. So Randy, who are kind of some of your favorites in the mage class?
All right, well, I have to start off with Ra. He was the first character that I played a decent amount of, kind of as I mentioned to begin with. Relatively easy to learn, so I think, and he's one of the free gods. When you first load up the game, you'll have, I think, 2 free gods from every class, I think.
I remember, at least when I started, you only had 1 god per class, but they might have changed that at this point.
Maybe it is 1, I don't remember. Yeah. And then you'll have what's in free rotation for that week, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, as I stated earlier, he's really satisfying to play. Just being able to line up your Deering Pain, which is your ultimate ability. It is just a simple line, but it has really good range, decent cooldown, and pretty good power overall. And it just feels satisfying to, like, you see someone running away and you lead the shot, line it up, and you hit them as they're trying to get away. It's just satisfying.
Yeah. No, correct. Ra is there are the five gods you start with is Neith from Egyptian mythology as your hunter, Guan Yu from Chinese as your warrior, Ymir from Norse mythology as your guardian, Thor as your from Norse as your assassin, and then Ra is your mage. And Ra is definitely he is a very simplistic like god. He has a heal, he has a move that hits around him to get people off him, and he has a line ability as his one. His passive is a very like you don't have to worry about it. It just makes you faster when you use abilities. So he's a very easy god to play, but it's still like the simplest.
Which I think is important for people starting.
Yeah, that's
I think all the characters we mentioned are pretty simple. I think the only one that might be maybe a little complex would be Guan Yu, but maybe that's just because I don't play enough warriors, so I don't play him that often.
He's I wouldn't call him.
I guess he's not really complex.
No,
but...
he has a heal, he has a spin, he has a dash, and the hardest thing about him, I guess, is his ult because it's always pushing you forward. But compared to some other warriors, it's not.
Compared to other warriors.
Yeah, freaking King Arthur.
Yeah,
but no, he's a very beginner friendly god, and his simplicity like means that like you don't ever have to worry about like hard tricks or stuff. You can build him how you want, and he's just someone that like you can pick up and start playing almost immediately.
Yeah, for sure. The next mage, who I mean is also easy, and I'll admit it, it even says, I'm looking at his description right now, difficulty easy, is Anubis, another Egyptian god. You might be seeing a theme here, and I'll admit, he's pretty easy to play, but also you have to kind of worry. His abilities are very straightforward. You just have a 1 that's a cone ability that does a bunch of damage. He has a 2 that stops people in their tracks. It's just you can only target one person with it, but it's a stun. He has a 3, which is you put a circle on the ground, it does damage. And then you have his ultimate, which is a line ability that does almost entirely too much damage. I think they've nerfed it some from how it was originally. But it's still insane. It's because it ticks every 0.1 second, for 3 seconds. So, I mean,
which might not sound a lot, but like when you actually see it in the game, it basically is like a Control-Alt-Delete into anything that it's pointed at. And it's that for 3 seconds.
Pretty much minus a tank.
Even sometimes,
3 seconds, so it's 30 ticks, and base damage is 43. So base damage, assuming they don't have any protections, you do pretty much 1,300 damage. But yeah, and then like it scales. It's like plus 15% of your magical power. But obviously, like whoever you're hitting is going to have some protections, even if they're squishy. Like every character has base protections, so I mean it still will melt most everything. I think for a tank, you might need someone to make sure you hit every single hit of it, because your wrap doesn't last 3 seconds. So you can't just wrap and then 100% kill a tank. You'll probably need to hit the wrap, drop your 3 to also be doing damage, be hitting them with your ultimate, and probably have someone else stun them again. So, but it's still, I mean,
it's a lot of damage. It's a
lot of damage.
Anubis is
pretty much if you can catch someone off guard without their beads and they're not a tank, and you hit your abilities, you're gonna melt them.
Anubis is definitely a god where it's like he is the highest of like rewards, but if you miss your rep, then you're useless. You're garbage. You can't do anything. So it's either you are like deleting the entire team, or you're just a waste of space. Like there's nothing. He is the one of he has no way of escaping. You either kill everything or they will rip you apart. Pretty much. I make fun of Anubis for being easy, but I will admit that
you do have to worry a bit about positioning.
You do have to. Yes, you do have to position.
Yeah, you might be able to kill one person. Yeah, but like you're still probably gonna die.
Yeah. So for me, I'll go now. I don't know if you have more. You probably do, but I want to.
I do, but I won't make this podcast. Oh, I'll just list him real quick. Hades, he's really cool. Greek mythology, I'm sure everyone knows who Hades is.
Yeah.
His ult's pretty cool. It pulls people in, does a bunch of damage. Unfortunately, people can jump out of it, but oh well. And then Tiamat, she's relatively new. And
Babylonian
she's
god.
she's a stance changing god, who still has an ult that's on like really low cooldown, but the ults don't do nearly as much damage as like an Anubis ult or Poseidon ult or anything like that. Her ults do a lot less damage, but she has like different variations of it. So she's this cool stance changing character, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I'll leave it to those.
Because I have
There's a lot of mages, and they're all pretty fun.
Because I have 2 more mages, and I'll try to be quick. But so for me, well, yeah, I started with the base gods that everyone starts with. The first god that I actually really started playing and really getting into was the Hindu god of fire, Agni, and he is a mage. And something about Agni's kits, like his abilities, really just, to make a pun, intoxicated me. Because Noxious Flames, this is one. Anyway.
Noxious Fumes.
Obnoxious, yeah. So anyway, his whole thing is all his abilities shoot out like fire effects. He has a dash that leaves a fire wave behind him. He has a flame wave in front of him that doesn't have the best range, but does a lot of damage. And then his ultimate is he shoots meatballs or fireballs from the sky, and he can actually hold 3 charges of them. So his ult really acts more like just a 4th ability that he can hold charges on. But his 1 is where he has a lot of fun with it, because he can make these noxious fumes, and any one of his fire abilities, when they hit these fumes, will stun the opponent. And it makes Agni very versatile in the way he can use he can dash through people 180 and then activate the fumes and stun people immediately to do it. He can throw his 1 out and then throw the fumes after the fact, so the lingering fire effect still will pop the stun. Or what's probably traditional to get a lot of poke damage is throw his ult and then right before the fireball hits, activate the fumes, so it's an instant stun, so he can get another follow-up with either another meatball or his 2, the flame wave. So Agni is just a lot of fun. There's a lot of different combos you can do with his abilities. And the first time I was playing mage, and I was like, okay, this is what it means to be doing a lot of damage. And it's also like a pretty safe god, if you're starting out, because his dash goes pretty far and it leaves fire behind you. So if people try to chase
which you can 180 and, like you said, drop that stun. So you can kind of like dash 180, drop your noxious fumes on your trail that you just had, and if someone's standing in it, they'll get stunned. So yeah, he's relatively safe for the most part.
Yeah. So he was a lot of fun, and one of the first gods I got to rank 10 with, which is the highest rank. The second god I want to talk about is relatively new at this point. He was the second Arthurian character to get in, and that is the mage Merlin. And Merlin is a mage, kind of similar, is a stance changer. And he has 3 different stances. It's fire, art, ice, and arcane, which changes all his abilities around. Arcane is these purple effects that can kind of hold people in and do damage, kind of your traditional mage. Fire has a lot less range, but you can really just melt people's protection and does a lot. And then ice has the longest range and will slow people, but does the least amount of damage. And Merlin just has a very unique playstyle of he doesn't have a big like Anubis ult or raw ult. His ult is changing the stances, and there is a field around him, but it's not where you get your big damage from. So he has a very unique and diverse playstyle, and that's what I like about the mages when they play differently from any other god. They're unique. They're not just throw line, throw big ult, win the game. Not to say that isn't fun to do, because I definitely have some fun as raw. But those are the gods that always stick with me more when they're very different from the rest of the cast. And it also helps that Merlin does have a skin as Aang from The Last Airbender, which we will, towards the end, we'll talk about the crossover events. But he has one of my favorite skins for a mage, on top of Swagni, which obviously Agni has. All right, but that is the mages. Unless you feel like you want to talk about anyone else.
Um,
'Cause,
we'll get to them when we get to assassins. There are
yeah,
one of the things they've started to do. They've blended classes for different damage types. So like they'll be
there'll be more.
even though they're classified as a mage, they're very, let's say, assassin-like or very hunter-like. But
Yeah.
we'll get to them when we get to those classes.
Of course. So we'll go into my favorite class now, which are the warriors. And these are your kind of warriors are like, masters of nothing. They're technically the tanks of your physical role, but they can also do a lot more damage than like the guardians. They're supposed to be all rounders. They can do everything. There are warriors that play very much like basic attack based, and then there are other warriors that play very like ability based, where you're really wanting to lower in your cooldowns and spamming your abilities as much as possible. So that's another reason I like the warriors, is because a lot of them play very differently from each other. The only thing kind of that is very similar between is they all have some way of sustaining themselves, which means like either healing themselves or giving themselves shields, or just being annoying to kill. Which is probably why Randy doesn't like playing them. But I'll ask you first. What's one of your favorite like warriors to play, Randy?
One of my favorites to play is Mulan.
Yep.
She's really fun to play. And I know some people like Mulan from Disney, and yes, but also from The Legend.
Yes.
Where do you think Disney got The
Chinese.
Legend? Anyway, she's really fun to play. I know, at least initially, because this is every new god when they come out. I think they try and make them really enticing to play, so they give them this pretty cool kit. They want them to feel good to play. So maybe they're a bit, maybe they went a little too hard on how much damage she does, or how many protections someone has, or maybe a little of both. But there was a time to where, and like Drew was saying, you kind of build them hybrid, a little bit of tank, a little bit of damage. There was a time she did so much damage, I played her full assassin.
Yeah.
To where basically there was this item called Rangda's Mask, and it's still in this game. Basically, you take increased damage, but you do a lot more damage. Couple that with some decent pen items and crit items, you could pretty much use her 3, which is a grapple. She pretty much shoots out a rope dart, or arrow, I guess, and then pulls herself and the enemy together. And then pretty much you're immediately able to at least get one auto attack in. And so you pair that with being able to crit, a Hydra's Lament, which pretty much means after you use an ability, your next basic attack does increase damage, the Rangda's Mask, and then just other damaging items. You could pretty easily 2-hit someone. You grapple them, hit them with an auto. If that doesn't kill them, you use your 1, which is this, since you're right on top of them, you're able to hit it super easy. It's just this cone ability. So yeah, you could pretty much 2-hit, maybe 3-hit anyone. To be fair,
Yeah.
you pretty much had to catch them off guard, because with Rangda's Mask, if you end up in a team fight and get even the least bit focused, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah. It's an item that very much changes your class.
It basically changes your class. But even playing her traditional is pretty fun. Like I said, as I kind of went over her abilities, she has that one that's this cone ability that hits in 3 waves. Or it hits in 2 waves initially, and it's actually her passive, which I think is pretty fun. Basically, as you hit your abilities, they evolve after you do a certain amount of damage. Because basically, she's a master of a bunch of different weapons. So you have her 1, which she's using her sword. You have her 2, she uses a spear. Her 3, an arrow. And then her alt incorporates all of them. But basically, as you damage with those, they get buffed. Like her 1 changes to where it hits 3 times. Her 2 hits twice and gets increased healing. Her 3 now lets her hit walls and pull herself away, which can be nice for escapes and stuff like that. And I believe
the ult never changes.
Her ult doesn't change.
Her ult doesn't change. It only affects her ability, or her passive only affects her abilities.
But yeah, she's really fun to play. I guess moving on, they just announced, or not just announced, the newest god is Surtur. He's the fire giant, if you've been playing Smite for a while,
yeah,
he was the guy you were beating up in Conquest to get after, I think, the 15-minute mark or something like that. He'd spawn, and he'd pretty much give your team a big buff. He's been really fun to play recently. His abilities, like his ult, is really fun because you jump up into the air and you come down as a giant meteor, and when you land, you spawn a bunch of little minions and stuff that do damage, and you can also pick them up and throw them at enemies, causing them to get stunned. And he has a good like heal and self buff. And one last one, just to go over it, is King Arthur. He's stance switching, very ability based. He's fun to play. I would say he's also kind of. I mean, this is most warriors. It's very unga bunga, as we've been saying. You just kind of run at someone and press your buttons. Arthur is even more of that because he has 8 abilities in essence. Because you have your one that has 2 different kinds. Pretty much every time you use an ability, he changes stances. So you have your one that has 2 different things. Your 2, same thing. 3, same thing. And even your ult has 2 separate ones. Your ult doesn't change based on stance. It's built on like a meter, and your meter builds up as you take damage and do damage. Yeah. So
I would argue, though, I mean, you're not wrong that Arthur is very unga bunga. You do run at people.
You just run at people and you roll your face over the buttons.
I will say, I mean, that's a great way to say it. I will make the argument that, like, he's a bit harder than other warriors in the sense of, like, you have so many abilities. And you don't change stances like Merlin or, like, Hell or, like, these other gods where it's, like, you push a button and now you're in the other one. Arthur will always change the stance after you do an ability. You do it, and now I'm in yellow. Now I'm in blue. Now I'm in yellow. Now I'm in blue. It's always... So I would argue, like, it's a little bit more difficult because, like, you kind of have to, like... You have to almost rewire your brain and just be like, yeah, I used my one. Now I got to use it again because it's a different kind of one. Oh, but now I'm back in the original stance. But that said... It's still a lot of him spinning in a circle, swinging his sword at you.
Dude, he's a Beyblade, dude. Let him rip.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I like playing those gods. Surtur actually is technically the second newest god as of time recording this podcast. But to be fair, their newest god.
Oh yeah, I haven't played the newest.
Yeah, they literally just came out. This game is constantly getting updated. But for me, I will talk about the first warrior and really one of the first gods where I learned to love this game, and he's also one of my favorite gods for mythology, just because I really like learning about him. And it's the Monkey King himself, Sun Wukong. Yeah, and Wukong is always been really fun for me. He has a lot of sustain. He's very tanky. I haven't played him when his passive used to suck and give him crit, which is really something. He's very ability based, and that's not the best thing for him. But,
yeah, it's just. I think it was if you got low, you got crit chance.
Yeah. Well, you got you got other things other than crit chance, but it was one of those things where I'm like, you do not build Wukong crit.
It's just like things, I guess.
Yeah. Now he gets like health regen and like a protection buff, which fits his kit a lot better. But he's always just been really fun, like an ability based. Warrior, I think probably my favorite ability of his is his 3, which is escape. So depending on how far away your cursor is, will change what animal you turn into. You either turn to a bird that can't be slowed and you move really fast forward. You will either turn, if you have your cursor in the middle, you'll turn into a tiger and stun whoever you land and do a bunch of damage. Or if you have your cursor right next to you, you're turned into a bull and you can knock people up. And it's just one of those where he has a very different play style. His staff moves. His 1 has a hidden kind of passive where it does more damage to like minions or jungle buffs. And his 2 is just a sweeping move where he gets kind of this big damage that slows people. And his ult's just another, again, sustain move where you go into the sky, spawn a clone, and can land on people. But when you're in the cloud, you're healing a bunch. So a lot of abilities that have like extra passives on and just kind of do better keeping him alive and keeping him in the middle of the fight, which is really fun to play. As for the other two warriors, this guy's a little broken, but he's another ability-based one. That's Chalk. Chalk is
good old Chuck.
Good old Chuck. He's the Mayan rain god. Has an ability that literally just makes it rain and heals him. He can throw an axe and then either teleport to it or start a rainstorm over there. And then
slows enemies.
Which will slow enemies. Which if you can get that slow on top of the rainstorm that you spawn on yourself, the enemies might as well be walking backwards for how slow they become. And he just does a lot of damage. Some would say arguably too much for a warrior. Especially, he's a very big early game. Like, even at the start of the game, he will be bursting people down. And then a big just thunderstorm ult that just crashes down, silences people, and just is really satisfying to hit. And the last god I will talk about in the warrior category is the Roman goddess of war, Bellona. And this god has basically been like Smite's mascot for a very long time.
Since the beginning, I'm fairly certain.
Pretty sure. Like, she's been like
pretty much in all their promotions.
Yeah, almost every promotion. A lot of the big trailers, you will see Bellona. It's very much the developer's fan favorite, but she is a very unique warrior in the sense of, like, I would argue you could really build her however you want. I think the favorite for most people is building her attack speed base and just keep swinging. But you can build her ability base too and do just as well. So she's very unique in the sense of no matter what way you build her, whether it's attack speed, incredibly tanky, ability based, or even like a movement speed one where you're just zooming at people, it just kind of works because of how fluid her kit is. She has a shield bash, which her passive is, it changes her weapon and her whatever her basic attacks are, depending on what ability she uses. So if she uses a shield bash, she gains a shield. She does a hammer swing, obviously. Her base attack becomes a hammer. She has a sickle, which you're getting the theme here, and then a big flag ult just a big leap that'll stun people and lead to a lot of follow-ups and will even increase damage if you or your allies are in its field. So just a really fun warrior, which, again, her playstyle is a big, like, I want to be in the middle of the fight. I want to be everyone looking at me. I can hit like 5 people at the same time and just keep fighting. And that's really like what draws me to warriors. The fact that, like, I'm the initiate. I'm the one that starts the fight, and I'll stay in here as long as the fight lasts until, like, my mages or my hunters or my damage dealers can come and finish off the people that I need them to.
I'll see if I can find the clip, but there is at one point for a certain update, basically, I think is building a rune-forged hammer, which basically after someone is hit with a hard crowd control ability, so pretty much you stun them.
Yeah.
They take increased damage, and then pair that with like Hi-Rez, other damaging stuff, and then also Deathbringer. There's a clip somewhere where I ulted someone, hit him with the hammer. Like just the hammer auto attacks. Pretty much you're already in the hammer like auto attack stance, ult them, and then you hit them with the hammer, and I one hit someone. I don't think you can do it anymore. I think they've changed the abilities and the items around to where you can't. But maybe. I'll see if I can find that clip, and if I find it, you can maybe throw it in on the YouTube edit of this.
We'll can slide it. We have a bunch of clips of us playing as these guys, so I might have fun with the edit on this YouTube video, or I might just like be posting some of these clips like to Twitter or something, or maybe our TikTok, because I kind of haven't been paying attention to that. But anyway, moving on to assassins, and this is where I believe you want to talk about a technically mage, but a very much assassin-based mage.
Yes. So let me scroll over down to the mage category. So another one of my favorite mages, who's basically an assassin because of the way you play him, is Ao Kwong. His difficulty is hard, which is bullshit, in my opinion. I guess some people.
This has been a guide you have been playing. Like, Ao Kwong has been changed a lot, but I think
he's been changed a decent amount. But he's my second most played god. He's like just behind Anubis, and then just behind him is Ra.
Yeah.
So, but going into kind of his passive has been changed a bunch. Originally, like when you weren't in combat, you pretty much you had this meter that had like 3 segments of it, and so each time you'd use an ability, that segment would get burnt down. Like it'd take one of the segments out, but that ability does more damage. Now it's to where every 10 seconds he gains a stack of his passive. With a stack available, his next non-ultimate ability deals damage to his enemy god has reduced cooldown. So it's more cooldown reduction, whereas before it was increased damage. And then basically if you end up landing your ultimate, it refills the thing immediately. But one of the things that makes him really powerful is he has his one. It's called Water Illusion. It's a short range teleport that also makes you invisible, and that Water Illusion, he pretty much leaves a circle from where he was that eventually blows up after 5 seconds.
For Naruto fans, he leaves a shadow clone or a water clone to be specific.
I suppose, yeah.
I know you don't watch.
Or what you can use, and I know probably most people don't use it this way. But if you look at it, when the ability blows up, it actually does a shit ton of damage. It's 270 damage plus 70% of your magical power, which is more damage than your 3. Not more damage than your 1 if you actually do the whole thing, but it's pretty much it's his second most damaging ability. So, like, one of the things you can do is if someone's coming up right on top of you, is use it, explode it 180, hit them with the 3, and chances are, because someone was already running at you, you already had your 2 up, but pretty much like they're running at you. You use that Water Illusion when they try and like jump on you. Let's say it's another assassin character and they use their jump ability to come at you. Use it to dodge the damage, blow up the damage, 180, hit them with the 3, and then start autoing them. Chances are it'll be pretty low. You can probably then use your ultimate, which is one really dumb ability. It's an execute and also an escape if you get the execute successfully. Pretty much once they're below 30% health, which some would say is too high. I could almost agree. Maybe it should be 25% health. But once they're below 30% health, and it's a short range cone, so you do have to be right on top of them. You can then execute them, pretty much throwing them into the air, and because you're Dragon King of the Eastern Seas, you turn into a dragon and eat them. So you're up in the air, and then you're able to choose where you land. And it has decent range, so pretty much you can go in, and if you know that you're going to be able to get them low enough and execute them, you're able to get in, get your kill, get out. So, which is pretty much the cycle of what it is to be an assassin.
Yeah.
That's like your gameplay loop for the most part.
And what I think is always...
It also heals you.
Oh, yeah, that's the other part, because eating them, it heals you. So it's it's very much like, anytime you fight an Alcalon, it is, if you are ever at, all he has to do is get you below 30 health. Which, like, I know sounds a lot, but, like, if you both are hitting each other, that is a huge advantage for him. You almost never want to fight an Alcalon by yourself unless you know you can heal or keep yourself above that, which is quite difficult if you're alone. So it's always... he's a very hard guy to 1v1.
Yeah, and one of the other things that could be super frustrating is because Water Illusion is a short-range teleport, you pair this with Blink, which a lot of other MMOs have, but pretty much it's a teleport as well. It has more range than your Water Illusion. Yeah. But pretty much you can see someone who's like, let's say they're hiding under tower, but they're pretty low. You're pretty confident you could get in there, hit them with your 3, and execute them and get out. You could be running from decent distance, use Water Illusion to close the distance a little more, and then blink on them to close the distance even further. Hit them with your 3 and execute them, and you're out. And maybe you'll take like a tower shot because you're diving tower. But Yeah, so you can even just close the distance super far, even though other than your water illusion, like you don't have a movement speed buff, like for increased speed or anything like that. So you could be someone who's like sticking around in the fight when maybe they should have already left, and so they're kind of in the back of their group, and you can close the distance really fast and get in, get out.
Yeah.
So he's really fun to play. I will say, like, sometimes I could see it's very high risk, high reward. So maybe that's why they listed him as hard, and maybe because a lot of people don't use his one offensively.
I think the only
maybe
reason
that's also why, even though it's like one of his hardest damaging abilities.
I think the reason he's listed as hard is mainly also because, like, again, he's technically a mage. Which I will say, one of the best things about Alcorn is the fact that he is a magical person and gets access to magical items, which most assassins don't, because Tahuti is incredible. It's insane on him and would be insane on most other hunters, but that's a different story. So I think it's just because, like, he's hard compared to most mages, because assassins are typically a more difficult class. But
I suppose, yeah, you have to commit a lot harder to being in there, while mages can kind of play it in the back line.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, he's an assassin basically, but even though he's a mage.
Yeah.
But enough talking about him. I'll talk about an actual assassin.
Okay.
Just really quickly. Another one of my favorites is Fenrir, which I'm sure some people know from Norse mythology. He's really fun to play. Unfortunately, I felt like he's really died off in later seasons, more recently, just because a lot of people either have some form of escape or some sort of stun that stops like my 3, which basically 3 it's fine for chasing people for the most part, if they have a dash or something like that. But I think a jump they can get out of it, I think. But basically you lock onto a target, he strikes them 4 times, doing damage, and he'll follow them even if they dash. So let's say Ogni, like Drew was talking about earlier. Let's say he just used his Noxious Fume, so he doesn't have his stun. I can grab onto him. Even though he uses his dash to get away, I follow him through that dash. So he can be really fun to play like that. Yeah. You have your leap, which can do a stun if you have your passive built up. And then you have Ragnarok, which is just really fun. You grow super big, you do a bunch of damage, and you also gain some protections if your passive is fully built. He's satisfying to play. He's very ability based.
Yeah. Fenrir is definitely a god where, like, he's one. Some gods, like, if their passive is just something that happens and it helps them, maybe. Or not. Fenrir is definitely a god plays a lot around his passive, as you said. Like,
you kind of have to focus it.
So, like, but he's definitely fun. He has kind of died off, but he was one of, like, the original. Not like one of the first.
He's one of the original gods.
Yeah.
And he's changed a bunch too. Like his ult, it used to be, I think it was an old Guan Yu ult, which I think became Ganesh ult. I think Ganesh ult is Guan Yu's old ult from like season 1. Anyway, basically there's these 4 pillars that come up in Ganesh ult. Anyway, if you were Fenrir and you had someone in your mouth, you could like wave them back and forth and like hit them in the pillar and take damage.
I thought that was
maybe you can do that now with Guan Yu, or not with Guan Yu, with Ganesh, because their like pillar pretty much creates this box, and if you try and leave the box, you take damage.
Yeah. No, people
so I wonder maybe you can try that still and just wave them back and forth from going in and out of the box, and they take damage. So maybe that's something you and I will try after the podcast.
With Ganesh, you just have to be on the edge. You just need to hold them there. You don't have to do the waving thing anymore. And I think what you're talking about is what they used to do with On Here Pillar. Is if if they hit a wall, they take damage, and it was a weird glitch that just was too much of a hassle. It's just a weird thing, but yeah, he had some. Fenrir had a lot of bugs with him. As for my assassins, the second of the Japanese god introduced was what I like to describe as the original edgelord. If you are a fan of anime and you like characters like Vegeta or Sasuke, or like the edgy side characters that just like I'm brooding and cool and whatever, they all have some base like relation or inspiration from Susanoo, or Susan as we like to call him, because that is what his inspiration is. But in Smite, He is a really fun assassin to play. He's incredibly fast. A lot of his abilities push him forward or move him faster. And his old passive, it's not this anymore, but his old passive used to give him movement speed the more abilities like he used. So he would just be zipping around, which he already can, but just even more. He's been changed a bunch, but he's still. I remember when he first came out, and I saw his design and his like character play. I was like, I'm gonna get good at this guy, and I kind of did. And he's another god where he pairs very well with Blink because what's better than 2 movement speed abilities? A relic that basically gives you 3. And
Yep.
he has his 1 is a series of sword swings that ends in a dash. His 2 is a pull that brings them closer to you. So again, very hard to get away with. And his 3 is a tornado that he can teleport to. So a dash, a pull, and a teleport. And then his ult is this big tornado that he can charge and hold and knock people up with. So a lot of fun, unique gameplay. And one of my favorite things with him is a very annoying system in Smite, but it's always been there, has been a relic called Aegis, which will pretty much make it so you cannot do damage for them for like not even a second, but it's long enough to be annoying when you're an assassin. But with Susan's ult, I can hold it when the tornado is happening. They're slowed because they can't get out of it, and I can wait out any relic or Aphrodite or their like immunity moves and then launch it. So he's a very fun assassin. He's very much like, I'm gonna zip in there no matter what move you have, whether it's a jump or a dash. I'm gonna have another ability that can catch up to you, and he's just a very like fun get in your face type assassin. So I've always loved him, and he's definitely probably my like best assassin and using my go-to. As for the other ones, ironically, both of these gods have avatar skins. A god I probably should play more, and that's Pele, one of the very few Hawaiian gods in this game. And she's a god of volcanoes, and her whole thing is like the fact that she gets a movement speed buff as her 3. She has also a knockup and a line ability where she throws 2 like little magma balls, and then this very fun ultimate where she spins and dashes forward and shoots lightning at people. Again, just another god where it's just like she's very good at chasing people and keeping up with them, while also just being very burst based and very ability based. Which also her abilities give a bunch of healing, so she can kind of sustain a little bit. She's still an assassin, she's not the most health, but still a fun god to play. But I think that is our assassins. Not a class I play a whole lot. I've been getting more into them, and probably one of the more difficult classes to play. But sticking with the physical damage dealers. Now we get on to the hunters. And the hunter's role is basically, yes, they can get kills and do a lot of damage, but their main goal is to do objectives, which I feel like more people should learn about, and to do, kill towers, kill the titans, kill whatever large
Kill
buffs
the Gold
are.
Fury.
Yeah, Gold
Fury,
whatever large buff is on the map. And Randy, I know this is probably, is it your least played class, I would say?
Here, let me check. Let me look at my stats.
While you look up that, I will talk about.
Yes, it is. It's right next to Warriors. So I've played Mage 50% of the time, Assassins 20, Guardians 12, Warriors 9, Hunters 9.
Yeah, so not Randy's go-to, despite him being on PC and me being on controller. It's usually the role I play.
Yeah.
So
generally, it would be easier for me to hit, but you forget that I am terrible. So
you're fine. But so I'll talk about one of my favorite freaking hunters. And this dude, his difficulty is hard, and I actually would agree. He is probably one of the harder gods in Smite. And there have been matches where my shots have just been off, and I haven't been playing well as him. But he's the most satisfying like character in the entire game, in my opinion. And as the defender of the earth, Ho Yi, which yes is his actual title, so like, he's also Captain Planet. And Ho-Yi's main thing is he is the highest damage dealing hunter, and arguably the hardest damage,
base damage, yeah.
just base damage physical person. And a lot of that comes from his 2, which is a mark of the Golden Crow. He can mark one enemy, and his abilities do different effects on that one enemy marked. So, what really makes Ho-Yi fun, though, is his 1, which is a ricochet that can bounce off walls up to 3 times. And every time it bounces, it gains more damage. But again, this is not League where you just point at something and it'll just auto-click for you. You have to aim and set this up, and it is very difficult to set up a triple bounce with Ho-Yi. There are not a lot of opportunities for this to happen, but if you can get that triple bounce, you basically do an Anubis ult worth of damage with 2 abilities. It's incredibly situational, but it is the most fun thing to do. And I remember back when we had the old Clash maps, I have a bunch of clips saved on my Xbox of me hitting random different snipe shots of it bouncing off the wall and hitting someone that's backing in the wrong place. So just super fun. His ult also is a big circle with a lot of damage that mainly is used. Yeah, it can be used for damage, but I think it's better use is if there's a team fight and you need to scatter or get someone off someone else, you just kind of shoot it in that area and just be get off. Just stay away from this area. And just more space denial. He also has a unique passive amongst hunters, which means he can only get crit once and then not again for another 10 seconds.
3 seconds.
Oh yeah, it's only 3. I don't know why I thought it was that long. But
still, 3 seconds in a fight is quite a long time, actually.
So pretty much gives it, because most hunters, and he can build crit too, but he can also be a build just pure raw damage. Most hunters will build crit. That's how most of those items are made. So it kind of gives him a slight advantage against majority of the cast in the hunter 1v1. But it doesn't give him an advantage against the other hunter I will talk about, which is the Norse goddess of winter, Skadi. And Skadi is unique because Skadi is not the actual real god, because she has a little dog. And that is Calder, which she said.
I won't say little. He's a little big.
He's not. He's not little. He's a very large wolf. He's a little boy. Skadi is unique amongst hunters where you build Skadi variability damage because you want Calder to be doing most of your damage. You slow them, you maybe put an ice puddle, but you send Calder out and just to rip them apart. And she's very unique amongst the hunters because she essentially has a pet that does a lot of her fighting for her. And no other hunter really plays like Skadi, and you don't really build most hunters like them. There's a few you build ability based, but Skadi is very unique amongst that class, and I always find that fun. And plus, unlike Ho-Yi, I don't know what is Skadi's difficulty. It says Skadi is hard. I disagree with that entirely, because I think Skadi is incredibly easy for people, because all you do is send Calder at people.
Yeah, and you drop your 3, which is your ice pool.
Yeah.
That people slide around on, take damage. Then you throw Calder at him, and you throw your 1.
Yep.
And you and a couple auto attacks, and if Calder's about to die, boom, press your 4. He's back to full health.
Yep. Their auto used to make Calder invincible and not being able to die. Which
it used to make Calder invincible for a couple seconds.
Now just brings his health back,
which is why people were like, Calder's the real guy.
Old Calder used to be insane. Smite definitely has a habit, Randy mentioned this earlier, of making gods incredibly broken at the start of the game. Skadi was
when they were released, yeah.
Skadi was no exception and was ridiculous. But now she's
in a better place now.
Yeah.
I think she's more well-rounded.
No, she's a lot better. But Randy, what about you? I know this is your least played class, but are there any hunters that stand out?
You already said one. I do enjoy Skadi.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's one of the hunters that actually uses there's this item, I forget what it's, a fail knot, that's what it is. To where after you cast your ult, the next couple seconds you gain increased crit chance. So I think that can be really nice on her because you
Yeah.
have someone stunned, so you're able to at least get a couple autos in immediately on them. And with that increased crit chance, you're going to do, some big damage. Another god, which is actually, he's not ability based, really, is Rama.
Yep. Rama is the most basic attack god in the entire game.
He is, but I've had times where I've just gone like insane with him.
Yeah.
It's rare, but it does happen. His one is it's a nice thing to have. It when you hit someone, it slows them. Not a huge slow. It's 10% slow. There's other people, like actually Ho Yi, if they're marked and you throw your ult on someone, they're slowed for 40%. So, but then he also has, and those slow arrows can also go through walls, so it's nice. You have an attack speed buff, and then you also have an escape, or to help you close the distance, where you dash through, and then your next auto after that can cripple someone to where basically they can't use a jump or something after that.
And fun fact, that auto can go through walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his ult is really satisfying. You fly up into the air and you land 3 shots, or you have to aim and shoot 3 shots. Each shot does increased damage each time, but the target becomes smaller and smaller. But that can be really satisfying. You see someone starting to get away, you jump up into the air and just snipe them. It's really fun. So he's really fun to play. You already mentioned Gotti. He's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I played On Here for a while. On Here is he's an Egyptian god, slayer of enemies is what his title is. He has a one that is a slow, and it also gives you when you're hitting someone with autos while they're in that slow, they take increased damage. You have an Impale, which if they get knocked against a wall or against your one, because in the center of your one is this pillar. So the general combo is throw your one up and then impale them into it, land some autos on them while they're taking that increased damage, and they're slowed trying to get out. You also have a jump that when you land, it knocks people up. And then you have your ult, which can do a crazy amount of damage. You throw 8 spears in very rapid succession, and you're immune to crowd control and movement speed penalties. And it does quite a bit of damage.
Yeah. His one, or as I like to call it, the brrr, because that's how it looks like when he throws all those spears.
Yeah, it's just like On Here, go brrr.
Yeah.
But yeah, he could be really fun to play too. But yeah, hunters are definitely my weaker side, for sure.
So, well, that said, let's move on to our final class, the other magical dealers and the certain like tanks of the game, the guardians. These guys' jobs are definitely to support, keep people alive, and not save people or set people up for other kills. They're not the ones where like you'll have the best stats in the game, but you will definitely have the most damage mitigated because you are difficult to kill. And this is kind of the other class that like I play a lot, mainly because I play with Randy a lot and Mage is taken a lot of times. And also
play Mage.
No, you're fine. And also, I mean, just randoms we play with will always like it's probably the least popular class, even though there are a lot of fun gods. And I'll start off with a Egyptian god that I think Rand, this might be your favorite god that I play.
It sets me up really well. Yeah. Thanks.
It is the Dawnbringer himself, Khepri, the Egyptian beetle. He is the one that carries the sun for Ra, and he also carries his team, and he'll never get thanked for it because Khepri is very much. He's one of my favorites, but he is not designed to get kills. He is designed to hold people down and keep people alive with different self buffs, and get other people kills. He has very, very low damage, possibly the lowest in the game, but he's really fun. And that just makes it all the more satisfying when you get a kill, and then I will scream out, "Khepri kill!" And that's been kind of our inside joke for a while.
Yeah, just whenever like he gets a kill, we're just like, hey,
Hey,
Capri kill, let's go.
No, if I don't build any magical power, which is his 2 will do 26 per tick. And that's one of my more damaging abilities. And it will tick every 0.3 seconds for like 3 seconds, I believe. I'm trying to find it. Anyway, the main draw to Kepri though, he has his 1 is a grab that will pull people backwards, and I'm really holding them in my arms. You would think it'd be a great opportunity for my team to come and like assist and hit people as well, but you'd be surprised how many people just don't. I don't know why. His 2 that I mentioned does damage, but also if I hit my own allies with it, it will give them protections. And his 3 is a root that is not his best ability, but I usually mainly do it to throw it out here and force people to use their escapes early, so that when we do go onto them, they don't have escapes. But the main draw to Kepri is his ultimate, which is the 1 revive in the game. If I put this buff, which the enemies can see when the buff's on people, if I put this buff onto an ally and that ally is killed, they will come back to life at my feet. So this combo is really great for gods that don't have an escape, and if everyone's jumping on the mage, then I can pop my ult onto someone, and then you just wasted all your ults and all your abilities on them, and they are back. They don't have that much health, about 40%, but they're still alive and next to me. And since they're next to me, they get affected by my passive, which can give shields and protections to people. So Capri's whole thing is about keeping other people alive and just helping carry. And he pairs very well with Randy's favorite mage, Anubis, because Anubis' main difficulty is holding people down or keeping them where they want them to be. And
for landing my ultimate.
The opposite, So
you just hold them and it's just.
Yep. There have been many games where I just feed Randy until he is completely unstoppable, and then I just gotta wander around as a big beetle as he ults everyone. So that's always fun. My other kind of favorite Guardian, and he's a bit of a newer one, we referenced him earlier, the Great Dreamer himself, Cthulhu. I love these titles. I never realized how fun these titles are. And Cthulhu was the first god that made me spend a good amount of money on the game, because there are these tier 5 skins, which are very expensive, but they have a lot of fun animations and became almost different characters. And you get a bunch of other buffs for it, and Cthulhu definitely made me buy it, because I was like, I love this Guardian, and I've played this game for God knows how many hours, so I'll buy it, and now I have Toon Mania Cthulhu. But Cthulhu is very fun in the sense of he's a very large character in the sense of like when he stands next to regular sized people, they come up to my knees. So he's very large, he's very intimidating, and he has a lot of abilities that just take up a lot of space and actually do decent damage. His 1's a cone that, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's not big. But then when you compare Cthulhu next to most characters, like, oh no, that cone is basically the size of like a Scylla 2. But it's just right on top of me. And then his 2 is 3 times the size of a Scylla 2. It will cover a large area, but it's very slow to come out. And then his 3 is a big push everyone away. But again, the main draw to Cthulhu is his ult, where if you thought he was big before, he becomes good like, 3 times that size. Just this giant mass where other characters are basically dots on the screen, and you're just controlling the battlefield because you have a massive, larger health. You can even give that health to allies or just swing at people and knock them up and do a bunch of damage. And Cthulhu's a very fun guy in the sense of like, he likes being in the middle of the fight, kind of like how I like playing Warriors, and he likes just pushing everyone around and almost being a bully. So definitely a fun Guardian. The last one I'll mention is another very big boy, and that is the Norse god Jormungandr, the World Serpent himself. Jormungandr is unique in the sense of, again, I like the big characters. He literally takes up the entire world, and his passive immovable is very unique. Of he can't get pushed, he can't get knocked up, and there's half of the CC in the game, if it's not a stun, just doesn't work on him. So he's another character that you can just kind of bully around. He has a big ult where he becomes even bigger and just jumps around the entire map. And I like Jormungandr in the sense of just like, a lot of characters, no matter what you do, Jormungandr is going to play Jormungandr's game. You can't do a lot. There are times like, I'll get a bad matchup and the entire enemy team has stuns instead of knockups. Just a bad luck. And it's just, I have an issue with that. But a lot of times, if there are characters that their main kit is around knocking up or pushing people away from them, then they're struggling very hard against the World Serpent. So, that was a lot of Guardians. Randy, who are your favorite tanks to play?
Probably Ares.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun.
One of the original ones.
Yeah, he's able to... his ultimate is very satisfying, especially if you get the rare case where you get everyone and they don't either have an ability that makes them crowd control immune or they don't have beads to make them crowd control immune, and you pull in 5 people. Basically, his ult is there's a circle around him, and he sends out chains within that circle to attach to enemies, and then after 2.5 seconds, he pulls them in, and everyone gets pulled to him. If they don't have an ability that makes them crowd control immune. So he's great for setup for he could be really good for Raw, or like Poseidon or Scylla, pretty much for any mage.
Any big burst damage mage, which are most of the mages.
Yeah, but it's really satisfying to where you pull people in and then they like all get hit with Poseidon ult. Or they get pulled in and you have the Zeus's lightning storm above them, or Ra like hits them with his ultimate, and it pierces through all of them because it doesn't stop on a god, and it just does. Now they're all at like a quarter health, and you just got to finish them off real quick.
One of my favorite things with, I'll let you continue. I just want to mention this thing about Ares because I realized I never talked about a very fun god, the Morgan. Which her ult is that she can transform into any god on the map, whether it's your team or their team. Super fun, but a very fun strategy to play when you are the Morgan, along with most Guardians, is double Ares ult. So you can pull them, and even if they beat, here's a second Ares ult. So you can get a people closer. So very fun, very powerful ult.
It can be. If anything, like even if every time you're just getting beads out, that is helpful for your team.
Yeah.
So
Ares is definitely a god. Like when you see the enemy team have one, you have to build. You have to build it. You have to do something to not just get instantly killed by the Ares every single time. Or really, Ares' team. But
his passive is pretty cool. For each completed aura item, Ares grants additional 30 magical power to himself. So you still get a little bit of power by building these aura items. So it can be something like sovereignty, which pretty much you get physical protections and health. And then the aura item is teammates within an area around you also gain some physical protections. So, but then that'll also give you 30 magical power because it's an aura item. Items like that. So originally what was really bad is like it was hard to find an aura item that also gave cooldown. Off the top of my head, I know there's at least one.
Genji's.
Genji's doesn't have an aura.
Yeah, it does.
But
it's the aura that gives attack speed to people.
No, that's Shogun.
Oh, Shogun's. Oh, I'm getting items backwards. My fault.
They're in the same tree, so fair enough. Ares is really fun. Being able to still do some decent damage. You're still pretty tanky, especially because his 2 gives him a buff for increased protections, and you have reduced crowd control. You don't have any sort of dash to help close the distance, and even then, other than your ult, you don't have a hard crowd control ability that stuns people. Your one, you throw chains onto them, they're not able to jump out of it, and they're slowed.
That's pretty good.
Which is good, but like...
it's not like Ymir Freeze.
It's not like Ymir Freeze where they're stopped in their tracks or something like that. And then your 3 is just a cone that does damage.
But
So
again, you can stack your 1 3 times and then do your 3. So it requires a bit of skill to get all 3 chains on people, but Ares can do a good decent amount.
Yeah,
of
he
damage.
can, especially early game.
Yeah.
Like if you do early game and like people are relatively squishy, you land all 3 of your chains and you land like your entire 3 for fire. You can almost like 100 to 0 like a mage or something like that.
Yeah. Some of those squishy ones, especially if they don't have like life steal to get off via the net. Yeah, they're just kind of stuck.
Another really solid one to play is Athena. I've noticed I'm choosing a lot of like original gods. I guess I'm not the biggest fan of new gods that are coming.
You like the classics. Yeah, your newest god you've picked out of all these is Mulan.
Yeah. Athena's really fun. Basically, I think one of the most fun things about her is her ultimate, Defender of Olympus. Basically, you're able to target an ally on the field and teleport to them, landing, doing 670 damage plus 90% of your magical power. So we call it the tactical nuke incoming. Yeah. So like Drew could be playing, like he was saying earlier, like chalk, and because he has that slow, so he's able to stick to people pretty well. So he can run up on someone, hit him with the silence from his ult, and then I land on them, and we'll take out pretty much every squishy super easy. So it's really fun to be able to do that. And then you also have a 3 where you, in a circle around you, you drop these warriors who, after 2 seconds, detonate and do additional damage. And you're able to keep people in that by using your 2, which is a taunt that pulls people closer towards you. So stuff like that. She's really fun to play. And then, honestly, her passive is just kind of Pretty much after you do an ability, you're able to throw your spear, and it does some damage.
Honestly, it's not that great. With a kit like Athena, if she had a god tier passive, she would be already more broken than she already is. She is one of the
a lot of people like overlook Athena, but she's really solid. And then she has a 1 that lets her dash, and then when she hits someone, they're slowed. Yeah. And then it also does a decent amount of damage, because that's one thing you can actually do. I've seen people play Athena in Conquest as the jungle character, which is generally played by assassins. But yeah, you could build her damage, and just having a global ult to be able to teleport across the map to like help a teammate is really helpful.
Yeah.
So she's really fun to play. And then my favorite guardian of all is Hades. That's a joke, because he actually was a guardian before, and then they moved him to the mage class, giving him more damage and less protections.
Yeah.
Well, there was a while there to right after they transitioned him. He still had maybe too many protections. It's less so now. Now he's actually more truly a mage. But
he's still one of the harder. I describe him more as like a warrior mage. But he's still one of the harder mages to kill and deal with compared to most, because most of them are incredibly squishy. But the last god I will bring up is one that I really like playing him, and he's definitely more call him almost an assassin guardian, but he's also, shout outs to Robert, who unfortunately couldn't be on this podcast. Probably his most played god, and that's Cabrakan. Cabrakan is even like in his recommended, aka the Destroyer of Mountains. You need to read these titles more. He is a Mayan god, and his whole thing is a lot of burst damage, and he can move really fast for a guardian. And even in his recommended, because there are recommended items if you don't understand, even his recommended, they're like, yeah, just build damage with him. Because he has 2 abilities, his 1 and his 2, that he just runs up and smacks people, and it, depending on like if his passive is up, his 2 will stun, so he can double stun people. If he gets an item called Polynomicon, which makes his basic attacks do bonus damage, his 1 will just half hit almost anyone, and then the 2 will do the rest of that. And even if that doesn't kill him, his ult, Tectonic Plates, is a big stomp, does a lot of damage, and then makes them stuck in a little like cone area, which then he could just use his 3, which is punching the ground, and just he has a lot of damage for a class that's supposed to be about helping other people get kills. Except the way he plays, he'll just get the kills himself. So his one drawback is that he doesn't have a lot of range. He has to be right in their face, but that's what Blink's for, and that's what running at people is for. So that is the last god. Unless Randy, is there any other god from any class that we didn't cover that you're like, ooh, I wish I talked about this dude? I think we got a lot, and there are over like 100 gods in this
There's
game.
over 100 gods, so we can't talk about all of them.
No, we can't. But that's pretty much most of them. Like I said, a lot of diverse characters from years and years of history and a lot of diverse play styles. But the last thing I want to talk about and bring up is, given Smite's growth and its popularity, it has a lot of cool skins and even occasionally crossover events. And it's not just like, oh, little projects like, like they did like a music thing with artists, which is cool. But to some pretty big names. They, as I mentioned earlier, they have Avatar: The Last Airbender characters, which I would argue me and Randy's probably favorite event.
Yeah, I think that's probably their most high-profile one they've done.
Yeah, because especially, 4 people that I mentioned, like Merlin has Aang, Susanoo has Zuko, Pele has Azula, and Scotty has Korra. Like, most of the people I mentioned, but those are the Avatar skins. But other than Avatar, they have Ruby, which is it started as an online, animated show by the company Rooster Teeth, aka Achievement Hunter. And they have those characters that are in there, which are fun. They also have Transformers, which was
pretty cool.
That's also one of my high ones. But I would argue probably one of my even more than Transformers. Anyone that knows me knows I fucking love Ninja Turtles. I think they're the coolest.
Oh yeah, they did Ninja Turtles.
They did Ninja Turtles, and they gave Donatello to my favorite warrior, Sun Wukong. Even though Dai's not my favorite of the Ninja Turtles, I still use that skin all the time. I'm trying to think what else. They're doing their Magic the Gathering crossover, which I'm not the biggest Magic the Gathering person, but the skins are really cool looking.
Yeah, the skins look really cool. They also did a Nickelodeon chest they added Zerg. Mm-hmm. They also added Danny Phantom.
Yep.
Rocco.
From Rocco's Modern Life, and then the Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of very fun crossovers and a lot of good reasons to go back and play keep playing the game. So
yeah, and then even then, some of their original skins are just really cool. So you mentioned it earlier with Cthulhu. They'll have these things called the Odyssey that usually take place over probably half a year or something like that. Maybe less than that. Maybe 4 months or something like that.
It's a couple months, but
yeah. But the end of the Odyssey, pretty much the goal is that you'll end up getting. They'll create this thing called a Tier 5 skin, which is their most premium. It's a very cool skin that most of the time it usually. Some sort of transformation thing. Usually it's been as they level up. Other times it's been as they use abilities and stuff like that. Of course they did one for Anubis, and I had to do it and throw money at the screen because I love Anubis. And it's just this really cool demonic pact. So it's basically Anubis was this character was this acolyte to a demon, a demon worshiper. And you start out as just kind of this acolyte, and then when you get to a certain level, you level up, and you become, I guess you're more Jackal-like, which is what he is originally, and you still kind of have a hood. The next one, you look very demon-like. You got spikes and stuff coming out your back, and then the final one, you're a full-on demon. You got these horns, these big wings and stuff like that, and hooved feet and whatnot, and it's really cool. And when you use your ultimate, it affects the entire map. Pretty much it turns the skybox for the map into fire when you use your ultimate. I don't know if you've noticed it or not when I do that, Drew. Because
I know I've seen
it's
it.
Only for
it's
only
pretty,
for 3 seconds, but it's still really cool.
Randy, for as much as we play Kepri and Nubis combo together, Yeah, I noticed that. There's very hard to not notice the sky turning red for a brief moment.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to miss, especially with how much you play that god.
yeah,
But I find it funny that like so you have three of the tier five skins, if I'm corrected.
yeah. I have Anubis. I have the most recent one that I got is 80s,
80s, yeah, the
and
crow
his
fire.
is it's kind of I guess a similar-ish theme. Is let me scroll to it.
Yeah, it's the crow
You start
father
out as
one.
kind of this like crow mage guy. You got your hood and whatnot. Then when you level up, you like morph with the crow, and you get these giant wings, and you got this like black sludge oozing out of you. And you have these really cool like one wing that's like made of bone, the other one that's like muscly and whatnot. It's I don't know, it's a really cool skin. And then finally, if we're just going over all the money I've thrown at the screen,
Yeah.
I also have Ares' tier 5, which let me get to it. It's Godslayer Ares. Basically, you look like this righteous, this very righteous, like godly, like heavenly being. And then as you level up, the story of it is basically like the shield is possessing you and taking you over. So like even his voice lines change. So like at the beginning, it's just him like greetings, and then you hear the shield, and it's just like hi.
I love
And
it.
as it progresses, it becomes like worse and worse. Like at the final stage, you just hear the shield over him, and it's just like greetings mortals or something like that. I'd have to play the voice line, and then you just hear Ares underneath it, like the person just being like run.
It's
So it's I don't know, it's like they do cool like also theming and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, as you level up, you become this more dark being as the shield possesses you. And at the end final stage, you have these like arches coming off of your back, and you have like chains dripping from those arches that are let's see, are they on fire?
it very much
Here we
looks like
yeah,
a
they're
war,
on fire.
it looks
And,
like a
it's
World of
really cool.
Warcraft like final boss.
Yeah, so I mean, just like when they do the tier 5 skins, they generally go all out.
Oh, that
And like they're ones that change and stuff like that. And not to say that the other skins aren't cool, because like we mentioned earlier, there's the crossover event skins that are really cool. But yeah, other skins just I mean also have a cool design. They don't even have to be from a crossover.
So I just wanted to point out, bringing up the tier 5, I just want to point out how funny it is that I just realized. So your three skins are very like they're demon focused, they're very
possession.
edgy and all that stuff. And meanwhile, my tier side is like it's Toon Mania Cthulhu, the style of old 60s and 70s like black and white cartoons of just like he uses 3 and he gets a cowboy hat. He uses 2 and he gets a little pilot's outfit. I'm just like, it's a very different theme what mine looks like than yours. But I love mine because he's like, hi there, and he has a bunch of jokes where it's just like anytime like somebody dies, he'll occasionally say or no, if he ever gets a item that gives him like damage or things, and he'll make a joke about the item. It's like, this weapon's duller than you. and he has such a fun voice that I love him. He's so stupid. And it's just there's such a really fun contrast to like you're like this shield possessed the man and he became the demon bear, or Anubis like embraced his demon side, or Hades
Or
became
whatnot.
the crow father, and I'm just like he got a little cowboy hat, or he looks like Elvis when he uses his special.
Yeah.
I love them. Love the skins. It's good. Last question I will ask you, Randy, because I know you're not the biggest mythology fan, so I won't ask you what god you want next. But what I will ask you is a hard question. But if there is a crossover event next, what would you want the theme to be? Clearly they have a deal with Nickelodeon, but if they could do anything like Cartoon Network shows, or maybe even another franchise that we talk about all the time, what would you want to see next for the crossover event, the Smite skins?
Hmm. I mean, I know they already did it, but I would like more either more Legend of Korra stuff because currently we only have Korra, so it'd be cool to see some more characters. From that, also just round out the rest of Avatar: The Last Airbender because I know we've been like we want Toph.
I want Toph.
She would be a great Scylla.
Yeah.
Like she'd be perfect. Come on,
she would
Hi-Rez,
fit
do it.
perfectly. But I also will also be okay with Cabrakan. And I know that wouldn't make
Would be
sense because
funny.
Cabrakan's huge and Stella and Toph is not that big, but it would be funny.
Yeah. I guess another part of me, I don't know what characters they would do, but I think it'd be pretty cool if they did like maybe a Star Wars one or something. Maybe
Yeah.
have one of the hunters be like Jango Fett or something. Maybe like Apollo or something.
Apollo would fit
That
that,
could be
and
cool.
his ult could be his jetpack. My thought with Star Wars has always been get a general, and it would be kind of funny because it'd be kind of tiny, but make
General Grievous Kali.
Kali, yeah, because she has the
Very
multiple
funny.
arms and he jumps around and
Yeah.
like does a lot of like attacks. But it'd be kind of funny because Kali's kind of a
Grievous
smaller
is-
god, but
Yeah.
I think it could work. And any sword using hunter or sword using warrior could be like one of the Jedi. Like it'd be pretty cool. Like I feel like you could make Amaterasu work as like an Obi-Wan or Anakin, or maybe even if you make either Gilgamesh or Mulan either an Obi-Wan or Anakin, and make it so it's like her arrow is like a force pull, or Gilgamesh instead of drop kicking people just force pushes them away. So
Yeah.
there's
Well, I mean, wait, he can be Anakin. Anakin drop kicked Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith.
he did, yeah. So Gilgamesh could be Anakin, and Mulan could be that. Heck, they already have a
Yeah.
reference to Darth Vader with a one Wukong skin. I guess it's more
Yeah.
Maul, but either way, they could.
And
do
I
it.
think you could also, if we're talking about like General Grievous, you could do Shiva, the
yeah,
Destroyer,
Shiva.
and I think that would work pretty well.
That probably does, but it's just like I find it
Probably would be
funny. Tiny Grievous running at people.
It's Tiny Grievous.
Yeah, just
King Arthur could be cool, and he's very like tanky and stuff. So maybe you could do like a Obi-Wan or something.
I can see that. Yeah,
I'd say he's more tanky in comparison to Gilgamesh. He's very aggressive, so you could have Gilgamesh, Anakin, King Arthur, Obi-Wan, Shiva, Grievous.
I can see it.
We got to pick a fourth one.
Let's think. Okay, so you picked assassin. We need some kind of.
These are all warriors.
Yeah, well,
we probably
yes.
needed a
we can
assassin.
make we need a female. I guess Ahsoka, but if you can make Freya one of the female Jedi's, and then make it so like,
Right.
she uses a
Do you
sword
mean Nemesis?
or Nemesis. Nemesis work.
would be good.
Yeah, Nemesis would work too.
Nemesis would be really good.
Yeah.
For one.
That
Let's
could
see.
work. I was trying to think of a mage to do, but there's not too many projectile people. Maybe a Morgan Le Fay. She drags a sword along the ground. Or
Yeah. But like, I mean, these don't even have to be Jedi and Sith and whatnot. Like I said, we talked about maybe like Jango Fett could be Apollo or something like that.
ooh, you'd hate this, but like if you make Boba Fett like Vulcan, and hear me out, make his like back jetpack his ult, so he like shoots that in the sky, and he throws like cluster charges as his like meatball as his 3.
Mm.
I know you hate Vulcan, but I think it could work.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be good.
He could be a good Boba Fett. But anyway, that's probably enough of future skins that might not happen, but it's fun to speculate that stuff. I do want to finish it off with because I know a bit more about mythologies and stuff, and for a future god that I would want to see, I want because we have a lot of lightning gods, but we don't have Hindu's lightning god, which is Indrid. And that's a cool name. And Indrid, if you ever look him up, has a lot of different cool designs of like what he's like depicted at. He's one of the strongest gods in Hindu mythology. So I think he would fit really well. And they do a lot of like fun things with. Even though most of the time when they make thunder or lightning gods, they're kind of broken. i.e. Zeus and i.e. Thor. So, but I still feel like you could have fun with that. More lightning gods. He'd probably be another mage, but they're creative with their classes, so I think that could be unique. But that's probably everything for today with Smite. We could talk about this game forever because we play this game for a very long time. And I would like to thank Randy for coming on. Any closing thoughts about Smite or about what we've been talking about before we get into the fresh picks?
Not that I can think of at the moment. Smite's free to play. You start off with a couple base gods, but it's not terribly hard to build. Also, if you want to just spend money, you can spend $30 and you get the ultimate god pack. He gives you every god, every future god moving forward, automatically unlocked. So, I mean, it's not like they're asking like $60 or now AAA games going up to $70 for a game. $30, you unlock every god and every new god coming forward. So,
and
it's up to you. If you want to just try it for free, go check it out.
And the prices
if you love it and you really want to play a bunch of different gods and you got $30, there you go.
Yeah. And the prices are much more reasonably priced than some other new free-to-play games, aka Overwatch, which will cost you $20 for a new skin. You can get literally everyone in this game for $30.
$10 more.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Smite's free to play. You have no reason not to just try it out. It's obviously more fun with friends, but it's a lot easier to get into than most MMOs. Definitely recommended, and I don't think me and Erda will stop playing it anytime soon.
Probably not.
So, as everything with Smite, now, along with our fresh picks of the week, this is where we talk about what we have been playing, listening to, or watching this past week. It's not going to be new, but it's just something we have been enjoying. Randy, what is your fresh pick of the week?
All right, so my boyfriend Will finally just finished playing through the Mass Effect trilogy. Don't worry, no spoilers. I know we just did our episode on Mass Effect 2, and once Drew plays through Mass Effect 3, I'm sure Drew, Seth, and I will do a podcast on the trilogy. Yeah. So that's part of the fresh pick. Just play the Mass Effect trilogy. There's the Legendary Edition. It's a lot of fun. But my actual fresh pick, it's old because it's, I think, a decade old at this point. But hey, the servers are still online. I'm playing the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, which, I'm sure we'll probably talk about in the Mass Effect 3 podcast when we get to it. Maybe not. Maybe we'll separate it into a separate podcast that just, Drew, you'll be there, but you won't have anything to put in on it because unfortunately they did not bring the multiplayer over on the Legendary Edition.
I'm amazed those servers are still up.
I can still find matches pretty easily. Especially on weekends, it's super easy. Even through the weekday, now obviously I'm not searching during work hours, obviously because I'm at work. But I come home, I'm still pretty easily able to find a full match, which is 4 people. But basically, it's this wave-based PvE style, and you go through 10 rounds, and then the 11th, which is the bonus round, which is an extraction round. And as you go through, you have these objectives, whether it be you have to escort a drone to a certain location, take out certain enemies within a time limit, activate devices within a certain time limit, things like that. But it's just been a lot of fun because throughout the entire Mass Effect trilogy, you play as Commander Shepard, and he's a human and whatnot. In the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, you actually get to play as some of the alien races, so that's also a really fun thing, is being able to be like, hey, I really like Garrus, and he's a Turian. In the multiplayer, you can play as a Turian, which is really fun. So, yeah, if you can find, go to a GameStop. I know they're going out of business, so maybe you'll be able to. Well, they're not officially going out of business, but they're having a hard time.
They're not doing the best.
Yeah, they're not doing great. So maybe you can find a copy of Mass Effect 3 for whether it be the Xbox 360 or which is backwards compatible, so you can still play it on the Xbox One. I don't know if you can play it on the Series X, But yeah.
Are you able
Um,
to purchase it online, or is that still like, or do you know? Like, am I
oh
able to
yeah,
go?
okay, yeah. You could still buy them separately. So
Yeah.
yeah, you could actually play. You can get Mass Effect 3 in 7 Deluxe Edition for $30. Um, but like I said, if you already have the Legendary Edition,
Is it worth the multiplayer?
I don't know. You can also, if you have, hey, wait, you have a
Game Pass.
Game Pass. Did you have Game Pass Ultimate where it
Yeah.
comes with EA Play?
Yeah.
You can play it.
Oh,
It's
there you
included
go.
with EA Play.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Another
if you want
game.
to just
Another
play
Game
multiplayer.
Pass recommendation.
I guess it's an EA Play reference, but yeah.
Close enough. This is like the one of the few times Randy, who is the one person that doesn't have Game Pass, which we keep telling him to get it, actually has a Game Pass recommendation.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
there you go. So yeah, Drew. So now you won't have an excuse for when we eventually do a podcast on the multiplayer.
Yeah, no, I'll play the multiplayer. It seems fun.
Yeah, it's
I got to play
fun.
through the
And
actual game first, but you know,
yeah, finish through the actual game,
Yeah.
and then maybe
we're playing through.
maybe I'll get it on EA Play.
Yeah.
And do a little subscription so that way we can play the multiplayer together.
There you go. Perfect. All right. But as for my fresh pick of the week, I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit because I am seeing this in the near future, but I wanted to talk about this because it is a very fun concept movie, and that is a movie called Cocaine Bear, which is based off the real story of a drug cartel that smuggled drugs into the mountains, and the drugs are accidentally eaten by a bear. And then this takes a horror spin on it to what if when the bear did cocaine, went on a killing spree. And it's a very dumb concept and a fun concept, but I like dumb like horror movies. I'm gonna be seeing it with a few friends this in the next couple of days. So probably by the time this airs, I will have already seen it. And even if it's bad, I can already tell that like if it's bad, it's fun bad, and if it's good, but also like incredibly stupid. So no matter what, I will definitely have a good time enjoying it. But if you need a real fresh pick, then I will say we've talked about it before, and we will talk about a lot in these upcoming weeks. But that is OG Resident Evil 4, and that is the reason I haven't played through Mass Effect yet, because I am currently trying to finish up RE4 so that I can be ready for the remake coming out soon. And also, we will be doing a podcast about that next week, Resident Evil 4, and then, talk about the original, just in time for the remake to come out. So stay tuned. If you've listened this far, hopefully you'll also listen next week. But that is everything that I have. Randy, thank you for talking to me on this podcast.
Absolutely. It was a game we've played entirely too many hours of, and I'll reveal, even though you forgot about it, just because I said we played too many hours of it. I'll say how many hours I've played. So This is just PC. I'd have to go turn the Xbox on and pull it up there to see how many hours I've put in that. The answer is probably way too many. Just on PC. Now, there might have been times where I left the PC on and went and did something. But anyway, it's still no excuse. I have 837.7 hours, which is almost 35 days. Well, loser.
I'm trying to load up. I don't know where to look it up on the Xbox accounts.
I think it's game activities or something like that.
On the actual, whatever. I can say that at least my stats-wise, I am Warriors.
It's not as much as mine.
Yeah.
I'm a loser.
Yeah. My role play is 25% Warriors, 21 Mage, 20 Hunters, 18 Guardian, 16 Assassin. So it's a pretty even pie chart on my grades. But, yeah, I don't. I have.
Okay, so it looks like you should be able to view it. Select your gamer profile picture, then go to achievements.
Okay.
And then select a game, and then select achievements again, and you'll see how many. Then it should show time.
This is going. Okay. I have. Oh dear God. I have.
How many hours?
116 days, 11 hours, and 16 minutes in this game, and I am ranked 2 of 45 friends.
Wait.
Guess
Did
who is the
you say 116
day?
hours or 100? How do you have more days than me?
Because this is from the time that I started. I've always been on Xbox. Because
I guess that's
when I go
fair.
to your profile, you are 137 days.
Oh, okay.
You are the
So,
only person
okay.
above me. You are 137 days, 4 hours.
So I have
and
almost
56
100. I have pretty much 172 hours, or 172 days in Smite.
Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
Well, with that, thank y'all for listening. Have a nice
Thanks for
day.
listening to a bunch of losers.
Wow, we're fucking it. Gosh, need to get out of here.
Have a great day.
Have a nice day. Stay safe out there.